wonderful place that we're at every single day. So Olivia, tell me, what keeps you at Madison?
What keeps me here at Madison, I would say most definitely is the people. You never walk around here lonely. The community here is great. It's really diverse. I would like to say that there's a variety of classes here, so like you can get really involved. There's nothing that's here that just does not suit you. Like everything here is like, I take many classes and I'm going to be graduating with more than that's required. The last part is that the teachers are here and they support you and they're always here as a helping hand when you need it.
Okay, so what kind of stuff are you involved in? What kind of stuff do you do around here?
I play 3 sports actually. I play basketball, softball, and volleyball. I have a volleyball game right downstairs. I'm actually in the student council. I'm student body president, and I'm involved in many clubs, as in like RJ, Majority Justice. We get in circles and talk about things. I'm in College Possible, BSU, Black Student Union, Senator Scholar helps you get into college.
And so finally, why are you proud to be a senator?
I'm proud to be a senator because I get to be a part of the new winning culture and a diverse community here at Madison. I just like being here. I feel very welcome and to just be a part of the shine to be here with everyone.
Well, isn't she amazing?
Thank you so much for that welcome. So to start the listening session, I'm going to turn this section of the evening over to the chair of the Enrollment and Transfer Committee, Scott Bailey.
Hello. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you all, those of you who have already sent us in emails, thank you. Keep the cards and letters coming in. It's a great turnout tonight. We have an hour. We're not going to get to everybody who wants to speak. What we are going to do when we get to public comment is to go school area by school area and rotate through like that to make sure we hear from the same number of schools all the way through. And if we don't get to you personally, again, keep your comments coming in. We read them all. We pay attention to them. Real briefly, I want to say there's an old saying, something to do with alligators and draining the swamp. Why are we here tonight? Because we recognized a number of years ago, some of us have been working on this for many years, that we have some major structural inequities in our system. And we're out to fix those. And those have to do with middle grades and what is offered, and those have to do with schools being under-enrolled and over-enrolled. And that's why we're here. And the staff has come up with a proposal that we're inviting your comments on. We are going to put forth some kind of proposal. This is going to happen. We are going to open up 2 middle schools next fall. What I'm asking all of you to do is to help make this a really, really good proposal. Perfection is not possible. That's just where we are. The other piece of it is that this is in some ways an interim proposal, because once we have a proposal that gets approved by the board and we start working to get those middle schools up and going, we are going to have to revisit boundaries because we still have imbalances in a number of areas. So what we're doing now is sort of very constricted and limited, but very important piece of work. But there may be tweaks in the future as well, so stay tuned. And I want to say one more thing about a small and important piece of the proposal that wasn't clear, is what happens to this year's 8th graders who might be caught in a one high school to another high school move in whatever proposal goes forth. Our intent is for those 8th graders to stay with their peer group. So if that's, I'm hearing that was a concern to some of you. We heard that and went, wait, where are we clear? And just want to say that's our intent right now. So thank you again for coming out. We are going to start by giving our DBRAC co-chairs a couple minutes to talk and give their impressions, and then we're going to go schools in alphabetical order, starting with V for Vestal, and I think going backwards down the alphabet and go from there. So, Jason and Pamela, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your work. And
We have
thank you.
interpreters here tonight?
Yeah.
We have interpreters here tonight. Could they introduce themselves?
I don't think it's on.
Yeah, or
It's not on.
shout it out.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Lucía, soy la intérprete en español. Si me necesitan, voy a estar allá al fondo.
Здравствуйте, если вам нужно на русском языке перевод, пожалуйста, обратитесь ко мне, я буду здесь. Спасибо.
你好，大家好，我係姓高嘅，我係你哋嘅普通話翻譯。OK，我喺嗰邊。
Hi, my name is Dao. I'm speaking Vietnamese, so I'm staying on the side. If you need help, come just find me on that side.
And we have childcare in room B62 if you need it. Room B62, there's childcare.
Child care in room B62 if needed. Thank you. I'm going to sit down now. And so go ahead and, mic's on. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, and you have 10 minutes, and go for it.
Hi, my name is Pamela Ki Lak, Kislak. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to kick off the public comment and provide testimony on the reopening of Tubman and Roseway Heights. I want to clarify that Jason and I are speaking as co-chairs, but not on behalf of DBRAC. DBRAC has not yet met to review these proposals, and so we're leveraging our knowledge of leading this process for several years, but not on behalf of the committee. Yet I can say that we and the committee do strongly support the opening of both of these middle schools next year. This is a really exciting prospect. But I hope to spend the next few minutes is talking about the DBRAC values framework and how this proposal fits into that. So the DBRAC values are equity, access, and environment. To start with environment, it's exciting to see a target utilization of no more than 90%. So an acknowledgement that schools both need flexibility to maximize learning and also that our district is growing. There's concerns about Rose City Park being at 100% and access at Humboldt now fits, but there's a potential proposal for it to grow. Growing a school takes 3 years. There's time to remedy that. But I'm hopeful that that will be part of the board's consideration. And full disclosure, I'm a former Access parent. The other part of access to programs. So this proposal uses a lever of grade configuration to provide middle schools. We don't know exactly what's going to be in the middle schools, and we're excited to see the middle school model evolve. But we're acting on faith that this is going to happen, and I am sure that it will, but just to call out that just moving kids doesn't provide great programs, but the teachers and the principals in the schools do. Some schools are left as K-8s. Vernon and Vestal is under-enrolled, and I'm hopeful that the board will use other levers like budget to ensure that equitable access to programs for those schools, even if they are not in these middle school models. The other piece about access, so we've heard from students that articulation between middle school and high school of their electives is really important for them to be able to leverage the opportunities available in high school, so to backwards map what electives are offered at different middle schools so that these students have the best opportunity going into high school. I'm going to look at equity from a community perspective and not an analysis of the framework, but these are some things that we've heard from communities that contribute to them feeling like they have equitable schools. So one is access to information, and we have translators here, but our proposals are still in English, and hopefully we can get increasingly good at releasing all information in all languages simultaneously so our non-English speaking community can participate. We also heard a lot about how vulnerable families have trepidation about moving to a middle school model, the loss of community, the ability of older children to take care of younger children and provide transportation. And lastly, for our undocumented families being exposed to more transportation needs, to really think about how we can do parent involvement in a way that limits their need to move around the city and can really leverage the safer spaces of PPS. And lastly, there's been a lot of listening, and I hope that you all can read through the listening that's been done and also listen to the quiet voices that aren't in this huge forum, the community voices, the non-English speaking voices, the people who can't actually make it here tonight. And I know you will do that, but just as a brief reminder, there's a lot of people who aren't here, and their voices provide those little itty-bitty details that really make equitable implementation.
So good evening, members of the board and student representative Tran. My name is the mic working? We'll swap mics. Can everyone hear me now? Okay. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jason Trombley, and I'm also a co-chair of the DBRAC committee. Last name is spelled Trombley. And tonight I'd like to share my perspective on both the proposal and the process, wearing both the hats of DBRAC co-chair and former co-chair of the district's Enrollment and Transfer Committee. On the process, one immediate concern I raise is the issue, as Pamela identified, of not releasing translated documents simultaneously with English-only versions. This issue also occurred when the original scenarios 1 and 2 were released in October 2015. By the documents being released at a later date, this inherently empowers English-speaking families to get ahead of the game on advocacy before underserved families. DBRAC worked hard to ensure the district rectified this issue in subsequent boundary processes. The action also contradicts the values framework, which states on page 18 that meetings shall have language translation in documents for meetings. On the proposal, I believe it's fundamental to ensure that we put students at the center of this work. In addition to us knowing about the program inequities that exist between schools and grades, students know it too. In a previous correspondence to DBRAC, a Mount Tabor Middle School student wrote to us about this reality, especially given that her parent is also a PPS teacher. She noted that she recognizes the opportunities that she is afforded at Tabor, but students my age at the school her parent works at doesn't. That school deserves to get support before mine because I have a number of programs and access to opportunities. Students from Lent K-8 wrote to us sharing their views on why a middle school program for them was important. It ranged from program opportunities to facilities elements, such as being able to finally have a locker to themselves. Second on the proposal is the community work that has been done to date. In 2016, community members have convened meetings to brainstorm the different elements they hope will exist in their new middle school. In this package that I'll share with you at the conclusion of our testimony are all of the notes that were collected at all of those forums from both Harriet Tubman and Roseway Heights communities. I hope that you'll take these notes into consideration when assessing the strength of the pending middle school plan. I'd like to note one example that staff are trying to work through at this moment. One parent in the Tubman listening session introduced the idea of finding a way to align the outdoor school schedule in such a way that would allow this year's 6th graders in the K-8 feeder schools would meet each other before they move to their new middle school next school year. I'd in particular like to acknowledge Senior Director Christy Lindholm, who is working on this matter as she develops PPS's outdoor school request currently. Moving the middle school implementation work is Laura Parker and Jerry Vincent. Their work will be successful, but their work is also dependent on ensuring that there is both a clear definition of the middle school program and the infrastructure to not only deliver it, but hold it accountable to ensure we are delivering the vision we say we want all students to access. SACIT, or the Superintendent's Advisory Committee on Enrollment and Transfer's core value was and still is that neighborhood schools are at the heart of a community. We know that there are a myriad of perceptions that families have about why they don't want to be boundaried out of or into a given school. Some families try to leave schools by petitioning out to attend a different school. This process is important to highlight because SACIT learned that families of color disproportionately use this process more than the neighborhood lottery transfer process. The board approved a policy to change requiring the district to develop a culturally responsive petition process that assesses these reasons per school and to use that knowledge to ensure that plans were in place to mitigate those issues in future years. Information exists on how we can improve the lives of students in schools now, and our infrastructure must demonstrate how it has responded to those requests. Your middle school strategy also aligns existing legal compliance work with state education laws. House Bill 3499, a law that provides accountability metrics around programs and resources for your English language learner students, identified PPS as a priority district for improvement over a 4-year period. The law comes with strict penalties, noting that ODE, or the Oregon Department of Education, has the power to take over management of a district's ELL program. One of the improvement areas that ODE identified for PPS was improving access to middle grade programs and their alignment with high school curriculum. As PPS is in year 3 of that 4-year clock, opening both middle schools, especially Roseway Heights, is one step forward to ensure that PPS addresses one of these improvement areas. Finally, focusing on moving forward. If, following the lead of Director Bailey tonight, the board wants an east side process, the board must plan for and take the necessary steps now to ensure the district is equipped to do just that. These steps include, but are not limited to, aligning with your budget process to ensure that existing resources are accessible now so that the staff can plan accordingly. 2, leverage your educational options process to appropriately make programmatic decisions and apply the DBRAC values framework to inform those decisions. If any focus option, focus option, specialty, or alternative program shall continue falling under that policy, apply the DBRAC values framework to ensure appropriate grade configuration that ensures both that the district can meet programmatic needs of these students that would be served by these programs, for example, TAG. For example, as access. While charted as a K-12 program, it currently operates as a 1-8. Multiple testimony indicates that it wants to remain that, but expand to be 3 sections per grade. We have a number of K-8 programs that are either alternative programs that meet a specific student need or focus option programs. The district, I think, should determine how it wants to apply the K-8 3 sections per grade criteria that DBRAC identified for neighborhood schools and assess any impacts that decision may have on neighborhood schools. While I know we could talk a little bit longer about the work that lies ahead, I hope our testimony tonight indicates the level of investment that the district has made in us over a 4 to 5 year period, and 5 years for me. There's a lot of work in process, but moving this work forward fundamentally helps to achieve a lot of the fundamental goals and do it in an efficient manner, particularly under continued resource constraints. With that, we've been given 10 minutes, so members of the board, thank you for allowing us to testify this evening.
Thank you.
I just wanted people to know that Director Rosen is ill tonight. That's why he's not here, but he's got the flu, so I'm sure he'll get debriefed from us.
Now it's not working? Cool. Just want to follow up on an item. We just had a board, FAO, includes budget committee meeting, and we specifically called out to start that budget planning process to make sure that we forge ahead with getting the east side done, finishing the focus option study that has been started, and all those kind of program work that needs to be done to get us to where we need to be for an east side that is full of robust schools with robust populations and great programs. So thank you for that. Very quickly, you can email the board with your comments. You can email us through pps.net/middle schools. There's an email on the form that you got, so there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. We will have more of these meetings. There's 2 that are in the process of being scheduled for early October. One back in the Madison cluster, one in the Jefferson-Tubman cluster. So there will be more opportunities coming up for you to testify. With that, let's begin. So our wonderful staff assistants, who are we starting with? And there's a screen right in the way, so I can't. Oh, there we go.
folks, we're going to do 2 minutes, so that way we get maximum number of people, so make it quick and punchy. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Hello, members of the board. My name is Laura Spidell. It's S-P-I-D-E-L-L, and I'm the parent of a second grader and a fifth grader at Vestal School. I just want to start by saying I'm really glad to be here at the brink of finally opening these two schools after, being part of this process for a really long time. And I'm also grateful that the proposal that has come out is better for the Madison cluster than the one we saw last June. I'm glad to see some of the split feeders go away and for Madison's enrollment to grow. But tonight I want to focus on Vestal. We are glad that this latest proposal includes Vestal kids at the Roseway Heights Middle School. The uncertainty of our status as a K-8 school has caused our middle school enrollment to dwindle, our staff to turn over, and elective choices to shrink. Our kids need and deserve this middle school now and should not be asked to wait any longer. However, we are dismayed that no viable solution is offered to strengthen Vestal as a K-5 school. 260 students is not sustainable, and a promise to consider funding for full staffing is not acceptable. To say that the solution to our enrollment is to expect us to somehow convince families to set aside their biases and enroll their kids at Vestal is insulting. We need structural change to boost our enrollment, not a PR campaign. Here are some ideas that we have that could actually help in Vestal's enrollment. We could not open Rose City Park as a neighborhood school. We could allow access to stay and grow there while distributing the Roseway Heights K-5 students through Lee, Vestal, and Scott. It is ridiculous to say that students can't cross I-84 to attend Vestal when Laurelhurst, Beverly, Cleary, and Buckman all have boundaries that cross I-84. At the very least, you could send some of the students from the Roseway Heights capture area to Vestal, as well as to Scott and Lee. If no boundary changes truly can happen right now, then we need to commit to a formal binding way to fund us as a fully enrolled K-5, and then adjust boundaries to make us sustainable during the review of boundaries for the Southeast schools. I guess my time's up. Just please commit to looking at ways to sustain Vestal through this process.
My name is Chani West Boyle. April gave me her spot. I have a son at Scott. When my son reached his last year of preschool and I started looking at kindergarten, I went to greatschools.org and I looked at the scores. And I looked first at Scott because it's our neighborhood school. And then I looked at the written reviews where parents spoke with passion about the connections and community that they encountered at Scott. They wrote of a diversity of background, religion, national origin, and many other factors that spoke to the melting pot that the United States is supposed to be. They said their kids were thriving and learning. I then spoke to friends who are teachers and expressed my fear of the scores and of the school's, quote, bad reputation. Every last teacher said, visit the school, talk to the people who work there. Do not base your fears on a number on a website. So I did that, and last year I enrolled my son at Scott, and I have not regretted the decision. There is a strong and diverse and joyful community of people there. There is support and teachers who care for the students, and a strong group of active parents who are working hard to support and serve not only their own children, but everyone else's children too. There are many good things at Scott. There are also challenges. We at Scott would love to welcome our neighbors from Alameda and other locations outside of our current borders to help us lift all of our kids up. Change is hard. Having an expectation of where your kid will go to school and having that suddenly changed is difficult. But change is a reality of life. Schools change, neighbors move, teachers leave for other schools, new neighbors arrive, new teachers arrive. Learning to navigate change is one of the most important life skills there is. Adaptability is one of the most important life skills that we can teach our children. To the board and PPS, thank you for your work to make programming equitable to the children across this district. The latest proposal to open Roseway Heights as a middle school and change boundaries is a huge step in the right direction. I strongly encourage you to take another look at your plans for Vestal. Your work there is not done. Leaving them behind without enough enrollment to thrive will continue to set kids up to struggle and continue to weaken Madison. Thank you for giving us a place to speak, and let's lift all of our kids up.
Noah Borsch, and Aaron Savage.
Thank you, Board of Directors and the parents who are taking their time to come here. I'll make this very quick. I have a kindergartner. We live in the area that would become Rose City Park Elementary School, K-5. And I just want to make very clear to the board that the goal of this plan is to make right-sized schools. And when you start a school at 100% utilization, that plans to grow to 110% utilization, within the next 4 years, that's just exactly contrary to the goals of this plan. And it even spells it out on page 27 of this report. It says no more than 90%. So I urge the board to make a very careful study of the actual enrollment and catchment area for Rose City Park and to fix this overutilization problem for the Rose City Park K-5. Thanks.
My name is Erin Savage. I've taught for 15 years with Portland Public Schools, and I've been a Portland Public Schools parent for 1 week. I have a kindergartner at Roseway Heights. I'm going to talk just generally about middle school, the implementation, and trying to kind of look at the philosophy to uniform that throughout the district. I think that's very important. I've taught for 10 years at West Sylvan, and now I've been at Da Vinci. So I have two very different experiences. I noticed that counselors are not anywhere on there in your necessary resources, and I'm going to tell you that is absolutely ridiculous. Last year, I teach 160 students now. I see 160 humans every day that I'm supposed to impact their lives. I have 15 kids with 504s and IEPs for anxiety. I had 3 suicide attempts last year. I had 3 kids homeless last year. I have 10 students who came out as trans last year. An administrator cannot do that. An SMS cannot do that. Counselors need to be written in specifically as a requirement in every single school, not just schools that can fund it with an enrollment, with an auction or whatnot. On that note, principals are very important. I don't believe you know who your good principals are and who your bad principals are. And a principal can make or break a school, and I've spoken with Scott about this. There needs to be some kind of assessment process. As a teacher, I have to set goals. I have to show you that I'm meeting those goals. There's a scoring guide. I'm evaluated every year, every other year. I don't see any process where a principal is held accountable. I see Ockley Green and what has happened there in the last 2 years. They still do not have a principal. The principal there was moved elsewhere. I admit I do not know what happened there, but like I said, when you open 2 new middle schools, it's crucial to have an outstanding principal. And I'm not just talking about someone who was moved over, shuffled around, making sure that truly it is an outstanding person to lead this transition.
Thank you.
Sarah Nipper and Francina Folger-Vent.
My name's Francina Folger-Vent. I thought we were going to pass a mic around, so I didn't come with prepared testimony. But I'm here as an advocate for Madison High School, and I want to say that I think your proposal is very courageous, and it's finally happening, and I would really like to see it be put in place and not delayed for another 5 years. I want to say to the people that are scared of have concerns about their children having to go to Madison High School, that I want to allay their fears, that this is a great school. My kids are thriving. They've done really well. The school has lots of AP classes. It has lots to offer. It has a very diverse community, which I think in this day and age is really something that we need. I know that some people are concerned about travel times. We travel 4 miles. And, well, my kids, I don't. And I feel like our concept of neighborhood has expanded. So instead of it being kind of south, it's east. But I also want to say that because there is a perception about this school that is not true, I would love it if there would be more outreach to those affected communities. Have them come into the school, tell them about the AP classes, have kids from Madison maybe reach out, I don't know. But it's a fabulous school, and so I'm here as an advocate.
Thank you.
Chairman Edwards and members of the board. My name is Sarah Nipper, and I live with my daughter Lorelei in the Portsmouth neighborhood in North Portland. Lorelei has just started her second year at Kairos PDX as a first grader. Under the incredible guidance and support of the Kairos teachers, staff, and administration, she has flourished in her academic, social, and emotional development. And most importantly, perhaps, being a part of the Kairos family has educated both Lorelei and myself about how important it is to advocate for and stand with our community. And so I'm here today as a proud member of the Kairos community to ask you to please, please allow Kairos to keep our home at the Humboldt School. Kairos has been intentional about staying rooted in North Portland in order to best serve its target populations, children and families who face structural inequities in educational opportunities, namely African American and families of color, those in poverty, and children with cognitive, physical, and emotional challenges. The overwhelming majority of Kairos families come from inner North and Northeast Portland, and losing what has become a stable and welcoming home for Kairos families would be very disruptive, particularly given Humboldt's roots in an African American neighborhood whose community has suffered the ill effects of gentrification and displacement over the past many, many years. I understand that addressing equity issues is a huge priority for this board, and I commend all of you for that. Director Moore, I know from following your candidacy in particular that you are particularly passionate about closing the achievement gap for kids of color and those in poverty, and that you understand and root for the value of using high-quality metrics to measure our progress. We know what the data say, that graduation rates, test scores, and post-secondary achievements are significantly lower for kids facing racial and economic inequities. Kairos is an important force in the North Portland community aiming to change these trajectories. Forcing yet another transition for families who have already had transition would put another barrier. Please let us come together in support of Kairos kids who are PPS kids to let us stay at Humboldt School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katra Aljama and Finney Kiersted.
Hi everybody. Actually, I'm here to meet the board. I have 3 kids. One of them, my daughter, she's talent gifted program in Portland Public School. But the thing is, they're not in school anymore. The reason we called the board, my husband going to come.
Take your time.
He went to Kabla school district and we didn't get any result from the school district.
So I'm sorry, can you say that again? We couldn't understand.
Can you move your microphone a little bit closer?
Close. My husband called the school district a couple of times. We went there. There is no result for the kids. And still the kids with me at this home. And we tried to just resolve those kids to Berger school. We cannot afford that school. They say we're not in the address, we're not in the border school line. I don't know what to do with the school, with those kids. And I have to go to school because I got my plan, I didn't do any transfer the time to do the transfer for the kids because my plan to keep the kids at homeschooling. But what happened, I got a scholarship from Portland State, and everything is complete change in my situation. I have to go full-time student, and I have to go to school, my kids to school in state homeschooling. And when I work for the school, I don't need the school close to me because they didn't get enough education when I need. They say, okay, look for the school. And when I look for the school I need, they say that you're not in the school, you're not in your address or you're not close to you. And it's just, I keep calling, we keep addressing that issue. Nobody tried to Fausta's issue.
Is Judy Martin here? So,
Yeah, we want to connect you with somebody right here, so we take care of that. Take care of your kids, okay?
so Roseanne?
Yeah, if you could go talk to Roseanne, so we address that very quickly.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name. Hi. Hi,
Hello.
my name is this?
I think that one works, maybe.
All right. Here, I'll just get rid of it. All right. Hi, my name is Finney and Kirstead. I'm in the 7th grade and will be 13 in 2 months. PPS wants to change my neighborhood to the Madison area from the Grant area. I go to Beverly Cleary School, which is across the street from Grant High School. Most of my friends are in the Grant community and will be going to Grant High School. In fact, my best friend only lives 1 block from 47th, but I still won't be able to go to school with him. I feel part of the Grant community and even did track and field for Grant High School's PIL Junior League. I swam at Grant Pool this summer too. I moved here from California when I was 11 and had no friends. I made many friends at Beverly Cleary last year and don't want to have to again. I feel like being able to, I like being able to walk with my friends to school, and I won't be able to if I went to Madison. I used to be a bit anxious and nervous before I went to Beverly Cleary. My friends at Beverly Cleary helped me become less nervous and more active. I think I speak for most kids in my neighborhood that we want to stay in the Grant community. Thank you for listening, and good night.
Thank you.
Galen Campbell and Canny Westfogel.
Hi, my name is April Whipple, W-H-I-P-P-L-E. Shani gave me her spot. First off, I want to thank everyone that worked on this proposal. It's clear that you're working to address equity, the split feeders, and also the overcrowding of schools. I stand before you as a very proud Scott parent. I have a kindergartner and a 2nd grader at Scott. I am excited for my students to attend Madison High School. I have met with or gone to meetings where the principal has spoke multiple times, and I know that it's a strong school and it's a strong community. I am coming to you with concerns with middle school. As a former middle school teacher and former middle school administrator, I feel it's extremely important that this is not delayed, that middle schools do indeed open as scheduled. K-8 models do not prepare students for today's high school programming. It's impossible in a K-8 school, especially one like Scott, to provide the needed coursework. Consider please the following with middle schools. If you're staffing both a Spanish and immersion program at this new school, that is going to be a resource and staffing challenge, so you need to be prepared to find people that can work in that environment. Also, when you're building a master schedule board and you're trying to schedule students both into their Vietnamese immersion classes and their Spanish immersion classes, along with a neighborhood program, you're going to face challenges where students are going to end up being tracked into courses with the same people they attended elementary school with. So please carefully design the master schedule board. Please consider the need of tag students at Roseway Heights Middle School. The scheduling should allow students to walk over to Madison to access higher level courses if need be. And most importantly, please consider consistency. Middle schools should not differ across the district based on the ability of their neighborhoods to fundraise. Please make sure that middle schools have common programming and common electives. Thank you.
My name is Galen Gamble. I'm a Vestal parent and the PTA president. Thank you, Chair Brim Edwards and the board for the opportunity to speak this evening. I would like to also thank the Vestal families who were able to attend, but acknowledge that many of the families were unable to attend because of the short notice. It should also be noted that a number of our families affected by the changes to DACA are no longer comfortable in unfamiliar settings, and we are working with our IRCO partners to ensure their concerns are heard. Under the district's current proposal, Vestal would be adversely affected. Without equitable changes to the boundaries, Vestal's hard work over the past 5 years would becoming a cohesive community school that serves a diverse student body, speaking 20 languages, starting a Sun school, increasing parent and community involvement, and changing the community's perception will all be for naught. If the proposal were to move forward, it would continue the routine neglect that Vestal has experienced over the past 20 years. This will be the first step in dismantling our neighborhood school. It will leave Vestal under-enrolled by 260 students, and our most vulnerable students will be unsupported with limited opportunities. We are requesting that the district create a proposal with equitable boundaries to prioritize Vestal's desire to be an active, healthy community school, and to stay committed to having an appropriate middle school for the next year. Vestal should receive the same opportunities to grow and be a neighborhood hub for the community. Thank you, and we appreciate your consideration.
Sarah Kennedy Adams and Judy Cromwell.
Hi, my name is Sarah Kennedy Adams. I have a 3rd grader at Roseway Heights and a 6th grader at Access. I sit here today conflicted with the recent proposal as one child being moved will displace the other. But this isn't about my kids. It's about the whole district, and hard decisions need to be made. I do not envy you, and I will not pretend that I have the answers. I can tell you that this process sucks. Being a parent who has attended meetings for 6 years, filled out surveys, and pays attention, I don't feel listened to. And it leaves me unsettled, this proposal. First of all, Rose City Park is unsafe for any kid to attend. It is one of PBS's buildings that is likely to fall in an earthquake, has high levels of lead, and worst of all, it is not ADA accessible at all. What will PBS do to ensure this building or any building can safely occupy and be accessible to any and every child? Next, I'd like to address Access being moved to Humboldt. We've been advocating for a building for years, and we want to grow for the 150 plus kids that have been waiting on that waiting list. And for the same reason this whole process was started, better middle school programming. Our kids don't have any. So a building is a great idea, right? Well, on March 8th, the school board's Teaching and Learning Committee passed a growth plan for Access that would finally expand the program to 3 sections of grades 3 through 8. Humboldt can't hold that many students. So what's the plan? If we're put there, will you add portables? What is the growth plan? And lastly, I would like to acknowledge that this move would displace Kairos community, who too serve a very important purpose in this district. They deserve a home and they deserve support. My heart sympathizes with them and the schools like Vestal and Vernon who are not being considered in this proposal. Please look at a district-wide solution. Shoot for more than 2 strands at middle school. Stop funding based on population and fund schools equally at every school. You can do better. You need to do this right, not for some, but for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Judy Kroll. I have a 4-year-old, and I reside near the eastern edge of the boundary that's currently Alameda, Beaumont, and Grant. I present myself today as also having conflicting feelings on the proposal at issue. I'm grateful for the work that has been done, which clearly has been going on which started even before my daughter was born. These are such difficult issues. But I feel as though this proposal in its current form does not address at the macro level, not the micro level, but the macro level of inequities which are present in our school district right now. Rather than tinkering around the edges, a few blocks here, shave a few blocks there, it must go deeper, it must be broader, it must address the inequities for every student, not just for a few who are shifting boundaries at the cost of the disruption that that would bring to the families. We're concerned about Vestal. We're concerned about Vernon. We are concerned that in 2 and 3 years' time at Rose City Park and at other schools, there's going to be overcrowding, and we'd like to know the plan for that going forward. We're concerned, at least in our neighborhood, that we feel like we had no opportunity for input on this plan, although I know many others have had that opportunity, no opportunity for outreach. It was by mere happenstance that we happened across this proposal at all. I feel that it should be, I feel that for those of us who have incoming kindergartners and younger who will be most impacted by this plan, that a listening session should be more than 2 minutes for every school. And I say this with all due respect for the time that you have allotted. We feel like there was no insufficient outreach, and we would also raise concerns about the fundamental foundational inequities, especially considering an incoming superintendent, key positions unfilled, lead in the water. Please don't tinker at the boundaries of painting trim when there's a foundation that needs to be stabilized. We would ask you to go back, take what's good about this, but cut deeper and go broader before this goes into effect. Thank you.
Anjali, Leah Sheen, and Josh Bliss.
Hi, my name is Anjali Veerasimha. I'm a 7th grader at Beverly Cleary School, and I live on 56th Avenue. Since I was in 2nd grade, we would go over to Grant and take a class with the high schoolers. Our school colors are aligned with Grant's. When you get your clap out in 8th grade, you walk into Grant. Breaking up a few children from our community, I feel, would not be fair, because not the entire community would be broken up, just a few kids would be picked out. And since we were in kindergarten, we were told that changes like middle school and high school would be hard and challenging, but not if it's just a few children that are picked out to be thrown off somewhere else. And I could probably count on my fingers in the 47th to 57th area the number of children that would be affected by this in the next few years, and it wouldn't make a significant difference. So I think I speak for all the kids in my area. It's a bit shocking for us. We have all respect for Madison, but we've always looked forward to going to Grant and being able to stay with our community. So yeah, we thank you for our consideration.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Katherine Berman Skelly, and I represent the 14 families who live east of 47th Avenue, who have 8th graders who currently attend Beverly Cleary School. And I, after what Scott told us tonight about our 8th graders, I want to thank you for taking into consideration the idea of peer cohorts, which is exactly what Anjali was talking about. Originally, I wanted to speak about the ramifications of children who would be impacted by this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the mental health piece of cohorts. I'm a mental health professional, and I want to talk about the importance of child cohort preservation. Studies clearly show that children benefit from a stable, healthy, and consistent peer group throughout their school careers, and particularly during the middle school and early high school years when brains and bodies are developing so rapidly. We'd like to highlight the research that shows that children who lose a healthy, established peer group can suffer real emotional consequences. The loss of such a cohort can also be associated with educational and behavioral declines. And I know, as a mental health advocate, that the changes in any supportive relationship at this vulnerable age exacerbates the risk of mental health problems into adulthood. In contrast, children with healthy and stable peer cohorts experience far fewer behavioral concerns overall, even when undergoing stressful life events. So we urge you to give the choice to students who may be impacted by their cohort changing. We ask that you consider not only the mental well-being of the children in this group, but others facing this type of extreme change. I hope that Portland Public Schools will be an example for other communities facing this challenge. Protecting peer cohort groups of all of our children is one of the simplest and smartest means of ensuring the success of the next generation.
Thank you. Last two speakers.
Steve Foust and John Brunner.
Good evening. Thank you for the time to speak with you tonight. My name is Steve Foust, F-A-U-S-T. I'm a parent of a first grader at Vestal School, and I know time is short, so I'll be brief. I just want to echo what some speakers said earlier about thanking you for including Vestal in the middle school program. It's very important to our families, and also to ask that our school and our school boundaries be treated equitably with the other school boundaries. Our children and our community deserve to have a boundary that helps our school become self-sustaining in terms of enrollment. So we ask that of you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Brunner, and I hope brevity will be persuasive. We appreciate all the work that you're doing, and I don't envy the task that you've been given, especially without huge sums of money to really solve a lot of the problems that you guys are facing. But I guess I would ask, as a guest of the Roseway neighborhood tonight, that you not split the neighborhood between different elementary schools, and instead just have the current elementary school students from Roseway Heights go to Rose City. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask the board.
Hold that thought. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. We're supposed to be wrapping up at 6, but if the board is willing to we stay for another 15 minutes, and then we'd have a break for the next board meeting.
Yeah, I'm
totally
open to that.
Roseanne, we're going to go for another 15 minutes, and then we'll have to transition to the board
Okay.
meeting.
So we're gonna go for another 15 minutes.
Robin Harris.
Robin Harris and Mary Malaya.
Good evening. My name is Robin Harris. I am a parent of a 5th grader at Scott School in the immersion program. And I'm here, I'm reading a letter written by Deneen Bergland, who is our PTA secretary. Dear PPS, School Board, Enrollment and Boundary Team, and Interim Superintendent, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service and dedication to the education of the children in this beautifully diverse city. Having been a PPS parent for the last 6 years, I've come to understand the monumental tasks associated with providing a good education to kids here, especially given the lack of resources and external pressures. I've been heartened by the obvious dedication of the staff and board members and their attention to the problems of inequity, especially along race and class lines, that have plagued our education system for decades and have led to the achievement gap and contributed to national narrative that our schools are failing and that our system is broken. I've learned a lot too, and I say that for myself as well, being a parent at Scott, and I'm richer for it. My son attends one of those failing schools. And I've come to understand that my kid's school is not failing. Our community was failing the school by not investing our attention and energy into it. I'll admit that I was once afraid to send my child there because of its terrible reputation. What I've learned from experience is that the reputation is based on fear. And once I got over my fear, I was able to join with people who were different from me and learn to see things from new perspectives and understand how my actions and beliefs impacted others, especially kids. I was able to see that I'd been centering my own comfort, my own convenience and experience, when what really matters and makes a good education for my kid is to make sure that all kids are getting what they need to learn and thrive. I'm so grateful for you for the work to make programming equitable to children across this district. It's a terrible political puzzle. The latest proposal to open Roseway Heights as a middle school and change boundaries to right-size K-5s and to eschew split feeders is a huge step in the right direction towards closing that gap. We want you to look at Vestal. You can't leave them under-resourced. And we support you as you deal with fierce blowback that you're going to be receiving from more well-heeled communities. And we urge you to please do what's right for all kids.
Mary Moria and Nate James.
Okay, I'm Mary Moore. I am a grandmother of a son, or a boy at Kairos Elementary. I was also, in my previous life, a full-time teacher in Minneapolis, and a 15-year member school board of a diverse suburb of Minneapolis. So I understand very well. I have been in your place. I know what it's like to do. But what I really just want to do at this point is read you, my grandson did not want to come up and say anything. So he told me what to say, and I said I would read it to you. So, hello, school board. His name is Lucas. He's in 4th grade at Kairos, and this is his 3rd year there. Said, I'd like to stay in my building, Humboldt. It has a big lunchroom and nice classrooms. We've made a nice garden there, and we grow carrots that we ate for lunch. I don't want to move next year. We just moved last year, and I want to stay at Humboldt. I know how difficult it is to change boundaries and so on, and I sympathize with the whole idea of meeting the needs of all the students that you have. I'm very familiar with the gap between students of color and people who seem to be more well off, and I know that Portland faces all of those issues. But it's very important. Kairos is a school which is part of the community. It's a school that was closed, and the people who live around it really missed the school while it was closed. Kairos is not a public school, but it is a school that's funded publicly, and it meets the needs of many people in Northeast and North Portland. So I hope that you will consider seriously not moving access into that building and keeping Kairos in it. Thank you.
My name is Nate James, a concerned parent from Northeast Portland. We've heard a lot tonight about equity, and I know that Mr. Bailey, in your opening remarks, you talked about the pursuit of the perfect plan and how we're unlikely to get there. I want to add a different dimension this evening. My home and my neighbors are being carved out of one elementary school district and then being routed to a different middle school as well. And I'm here to talk about the middle school issue. To me, it's a safety issue. In your administrative directive on student assignment review and school boundary changes, the section on compact boundaries notes the intent is to create safer routes. In the case of my family and my neighbors, the route would go from 0.6 miles to one middle school to 3 miles to the new middle school. This route would take my children across 15th Avenue, Fremont, MLK, Williams, and Vancouver at rush hour and back again. Who among you would send your sixth grader on that route twice a day? I think you can do better than this. I think that we've heard a lot of comments around the selective application of equity at these different middle school transitions. But I wanted to raise this important issue around safety because I don't think we're hearing enough about this tonight and some of the transitions that are going to affect families under this new boundary plan. So with that, I thank the person in the crowd for booing. And I think we can do better with this. And I hope that you will continue to think of the safety of the children in your charge. Thank you.
Heather Penny and Ross Bryan.
Let's be civil here, please. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Can you guys hear me? My name is Heather Penny, and I live in Northeast Portland in the Rose City Park, Beaumont area. I'm the parent of a first grade daughter and a preschool son. We are a two-parent working household that is trying hard to balance everything. My daughter is part of a very small group that will be allowed to complete grade school at our current school, but then will be taken away from at least 90% of her peers to attend a new middle school and a new high school, where she will instantly lose her peer community that frankly she and us as a family have built over 6 grade school years. She will lose the ability to walk to a school, Beaumont, that's very close and has safe street crossings. We all know that middle school is a rough age where peers become increasingly important. I have been reading about the importance of close friendships and supportive peer groups over these years. I think it is very important to make sure we understand and research the implications of moving these very small groups of students to new environments without their peer groups. How does this impact academics? How does this impact behavior, emotional distress, self-worth? I'd like to thank the school board for working to optimize the educational experience of all our children in Portland and increase opportunities and fairness. At the same time, I'd strongly encourage our leaders to avoid splitting up small slivers of neighborhoods, causing kids who have attended grade school together or middle school together to enter in a brand new system midway through their education. I recommend that in these cases, the kids be allowed to be grandfathered in to finish all levels of school with the peers and families they started with. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ross Bryan, and I am also the father of a kindergartner at Alameda. I guess I've been a PPS parent for a week now as well. I wanted to echo some of the concerns that were brought up earlier by some of the other speakers with regards to the lack of communication with respect to this particular plan. I found out about this on Nextdoor Alameda. A friend of mine came and talked to me about it. He's the only reason why I knew about it. And fortunately, I didn't have to work in the hospital tonight, so I could come and talk to you all about my concerns. And I'd also like to echo some of the concerns that have been voiced about splitting up communities. What is a community? A community is a place that we all know the people around us. It's where we choose to live when we have that choice to make. When we're parents and we're deciding where we're going to settle, we look for a place where there's people that we understand, and there's friends for our children, and there's a safe place for them to be. And if in fact the community school is at the center of the community, well then why would you carve out the 3 blocks closest to Alameda Elementary School in order to shrink that boundary? Why would you carve off a little bit on the farther east side? Why would you do this? I understand that the school needs to be shrunk, that it's over-enrolled, but it does seem like there's ways to do better than this, and it does seem like rather than taking people across multiple large busy streets to a place that's far away isn't really in the best interest of the children or their peer group. We chose to live where we chose to live so our children could walk to school with their friends, and that also will be taken from them. And so I'd urge you to at least give them the opportunity to choose where they would go, to grandfather them in for the duration of their time with PPS.
Connie Viner and Thaisa Smith.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate the honor of of my voice to be heard. My name is Thaisa Smith. I think it's wonderful that children are gaining to middle schools. I applaud you for doing that. I also think it's honorable that the goal is to proactively address socioeconomic issues and the gentrification and lack of programs at the K through 8 grade level and addressing the winners and losers of the school. However, we already have a community at my neighborhood. We have a community and we already have a middle school. And we are part of the area that is being shaved off in order to I'm not even certain why, in order to bring us to another school so they may have more enrollment. I'm not really certain. But my daughter would be displaced from her historical middle school and her community and all of her friends. Middle school is a crucial time of development and peers and community should stay together. Alameda has been our home, and for her to change schools at the end of 5th grade, and she'd be entering middle school further away without any of her friends and have to start an incredibly crucial time of her life, not knowing anyone in this school, is detrimental, I believe, to her, detrimental to her well-being. I don't believe that shaving off areas is a real solution. When I look at the boundary changes that have, occurred, there are still socioeconomic issues, and the shaving off is not addressing them. When you shave off areas, you're actually creating a smaller bubble in some of those schools. And I don't believe that that's really helping in the socioeconomic context. So I really hope that you don't make us lose our home and lose our home school. We already have, and like I said, it's wonderful that these areas are going to have middle schools, but we already have a middle school. Beaumont Middle School is our middle school, and it's historically been that way for 100 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
I believe there's some parents from Lee School that wanted to speak.
I just noticed that nobody from Lee was speaking. So I just wanted to put in some 2 cents. I have no prepared statement. Thank you for your hard and diligent work. We are so excited for the middle school. We want it yesterday, and we really hope that that goes forward this year. We have concerns about Vestal, of course. Boundary changes are hard. Do it anyway. I love my school. I love the diversity. Did y'all know that 40% of all kids in Portland lived east of 82nd? Okay, that's it. My name's Carla Grant. I'm from Jason Lee. Thank you.
Are there any other Lee parents?
My name is Jenny Stein. I'm a Lee parent. I'm a Lee staff member. And we've got a great school, except our middle school students are so underserved. We have 3 classes available for our middle school students, and it makes me sick. They get nothing, and it is so sad to see them knowing every day that they are so underserved. And there's other kids in other schools that they've got music, they've got computer classes, they've got foreign language classes, they've got art, they've got this. Our kids sometimes get to choose between, they don't even get an elective because they have to take reading. So there's no other elective for them other than their reading class. A lot of our students are English is their second language. We have a lot of immigrant families. Those kids are being underserved because they have to take reading. There's no other option because we have 112, I think, middle school students in 3 grades. They are being left behind. There's no other word for it. They are being left behind. Please strengthen those students. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least.
Okay. So you guys have heard from me about 4 times this week, so I wasn't going to say anything, but I think what I will say, my name is Ginger Husar. I have kids at Lee, Roseway. I'm finishing my practicum at Scott. So, and I've been, vocal about this boundary change since it started for years. Aside from Vestal and all the things that we've talked about, a few years ago when we started really talking about this, my oldest was moved when he started school. He's in 7th grade now. He was moved from, we started at Humboldt pre-K. He was kicked out because he had special needs that weren't identified. We put him at our neighborhood school at Lee, kindergarten year. They couldn't support him. So the following year they said, we can't keep him here. We're sending him to Roseway for their behavior-focused classroom. We sent him there, and Roseway was an amazing place for him. He's thrived. So when my second child came in, we automatically just wanted to keep her where he was. We are a Latino and Black family. Roseway is not that diverse. My second child didn't have the needs to be met that he had. She excelled academically, but she experienced a lot of colorism and things that were really harmful. When we started this boundary talk years ago, and I became acutely aware that things that I wanted to see change and advocate for, I was on that side of my kid doesn't go to my neighborhood school. And so many people that I was seeing even in my own community were at that time saying they were scared to send their kid to a different school. Their kid, how are they going to handle it? All of these things. So last year, I took my kid out of Roseway. I put her in Lee because I believe that our kids are very resilient and the parents are the ones who are fragile. And I can say, this is her second year at Lee. She's thriving still. No, she doesn't have the opportunity that her brother has at Roseway. And we keep believing that it's going to happen because she's headed into middle school. But she has thrived. It has been an amazing community. It is a community that I love. So just want to tell the people who are scared, who have their own community already, I've been there, done it. And I've done it without you guys forcing me to do it, just to see how it would work. And it worked.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to say, believe it or not, we do listen. We listen carefully. I read every one of those emails. I know I recognize a couple of names of people who had sent emails in already. I'm working on responding to all the ones that I've gotten. I've responded to a bunch. I've got a bunch more to respond to. Thank you. The Enrollment and Forecasting Committee is meeting Monday, September 18th at 6 p.m. at the Blanchard Educational, our office, the main district office. Open to the public, and we will have limited public testimony there. But we'll certainly be discussing this proposal more, and again, looking for ways to make it better so that we get the best possible proposal moving forward, taking into account as much of your input as we can. Right, so again, we're lining up a couple of more opportunities. If you go for public input, we'll be talking about this virtually every board meeting going forward, so you're free to come sign up for public input there. If you've got a smartphone, you can sync your calendar to the district's calendar so the meetings pop up on your calendar. Sigh. Yeah. But we're going to make this happen. Yeah, so. If you've got kids, please pick them up now because the child care was just for the listening session only. Thank you again for coming out. We're going to move now to our regular board meeting. We're going to take 5 minutes. Thanks for coming.